Hello all, and welcome to our webinar topic of remote user hardware asset management. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to get started. Today's agenda is as follows. We have great content from our speakers that they will soon dive into. It is my pleasure to announce our speakers. First, we have Yvette Mathews from ITS. Yvette heads up our services business, bringing over 20 years of experience in IT. And next we have Tom Watson, IT technology expert and entrepreneur, the founder and chief executive of AMI. A little bit about ITS. We are an elite ServiceNow partner. We are recognized as one of the top security expert partners on the ServiceNow platform, and we are excited to partner with AMI. Tom, I'll pass it to you to introduce AMI.
Thanks, Rachel. AMI is coming on 20 years as an hardware asset lifecycle management solution provider. We help companies automate and control the hardware asset lifecycle with barcode and RFID technology that we sell to ServiceNow and other enterprise hardware asset managers.
Hey, Tom, I am so glad you're here. You're one of my favorite people to talk about with hardware asset management. So we have a fun challenge that I wanted to talk to you about, and that's working from home. How are we supposed to manage things that we can't see or touch?
Yeah, Yvette, this has always been a problem even before COVID. I remember starting in the physical inventory business. We used to send kits in the mail to home users with tags that they could apply to their assets and a form where they'd fill out their asset information and mail it back to us. And that was, decades ago. But since then, there's been a trend of more and more people working remotely. And a lot of those users don't connect to company VPN, so there's no way to discover those assets electronically. And with a trend towards drop shipping new hardware assets to home users, how do you receive those assets to accurately pay invoices and to properly start warranties? Like you said, when you can't see or touch those assets. And now with COVID, this problem has become front and center, and it's on everybody's mind with the homework environment just exploding and exacerbating the problem.
So what do you suggest that we do to solve that issue?
Well, what we've had some success with and what we recommend is creating a self-certification program that enables your home users to self-report the assets that they have, to verify receipt and to confirm the ownership, the possession of the assets that you have assigned to them. But the important thing is that it's got to be in an unobtrusive and very, very easy for those end users to perform so that they do it. And it's got to be done in a traceable way that you can report on to ensure that people are performing that task and self-reporting their assets.
So that sounds like a lot of work. From an already taxed field services perspective, how much information am I going to have to try to get from those remote users?
Well, that's the kind of key first requirement, or the first consideration is to determine how much information you do need from your end users. The most basic is just to confirm that they have possession of the asset or not, or to be able to dispute that they don't have something assigned to them. However, one of our big implementations of this was with AIG, and they required more information. Instead of just determining what people had at home, they needed to know what they need to replace. Now that everybody ran home and took all their assets with them from the office, AIG wanted to ensure that they have that equipment replaced in their office location so that the user would have the ability to work from home or from the office. They want to be ready for COVID-20 or whatever, and so that people can run home and they don't have this problem of having to just, panic purchase all this hardware. So in that case, they needed to know, do you have this equipment with you? And did you take it from the office? And did you take headsets and docking stations and keyboards and mice or other accessories with you? And so that they could collect all that information and come up with a shopping list of all the kind of equipment that they need to replace. Now, this is more of a one-time issue for them because they're trying to get this equipment replaced. Moving forward, when they start doing these regular certifications, they're going to dial it down just to that, confirm that you have the equipment or confirm that you've received it. But today, they're taking this opportunity to capture more important information that they need from their field users.
So it's really critical, is what you're saying, is to make sure that you're not asking for too much, but letting maybe the end users know that this first time we're collecting data may be a little more intense than maybe future implementations of this data compliance check.
That's right. We have a rule at AMI. The more information you try to capture, the harder it is to be accurate with it, regardless if it's for the self-certification process or physical inventories or audits or anything. We want to keep the data requirements as small as possible to make it as easy for people to complete it. But it is important that you understand what the objectives are. And there could be cases where you need to replace equipment, and just make sure that you understand the objective of the self-certification. It can be more than just confirming receipt. But definitely, I agree, let's keep it as small as possible to make it just take a few seconds for those users. You'll get much higher compliance. But this is an opportunity where you may want to capture some additional data if you can.
That's fantastic. A lot of my customers do ask for things like that, not just for our now current COVID work from home, but for any of their users, even some of the folks in the office who maybe have things that we aren't sure that they have. So that being said, how do I go about this? There's got to be a lot of different ways that I could gather this kind of information from my end users.
Well, yeah. So most of our ServiceNow customers, or enterprise asset management customers, not just ServiceNow, have built homegrown solutions to do this on their own. You can use the ServiceNow catalog to create a way to capture this data from your end users. You could use the mobile My Assets from the ServiceNow mobile app that provides a list of assets assigned to users, and extend that to be able to have those users self-report. AMI, Asset Track for ServiceNow, has a self-certification feature that you can roll out that can enable users to quickly verify assets and capture additional information. Others we've seen users build external forms-based systems where they dump the data out to a homegrown web application, capture the data there, and then upload it later. So those are four different approaches that we've seen. I think most of our customers have attempted, or at least attempted, to build something using one of those four different methods.
What's been the most memorable solution that you've seen a customer implement that maybe would resonate with some of our listeners?
I kind of gave that story already with AIG. They had implemented a ServiceNow catalog-based system to capture data from users, and had a scheduled job to notify them. The challenge they had was just that the information that was collected was not seamlessly updating their asset register or capturing the data in a way that was easy for them to follow up on. So they were already an Asset Track for ServiceNow customer, and enabled a self-certification feature that they've rolled out to the enterprise that enables them to capture data and to create tasks for asset management that I'll talk about later when we get into kind of what do you do with the data that's been captured.
I really like the thought that there's this ability for us to pick a tool. We're not stuck with one, and we can try one. And if it doesn't work, we can go with maybe something a little more mature as we mature as implementers and as customers. So that's pretty cool. So let's say I pick my tool and I start gathering all this data. How do I deal with the exceptions? There's going to be data that I wasn't expecting, or maybe that's new. What's going to be a best practice around taking care of that data?
Great question. And just back on the technology choices, you do have technology choices, but probably the data requirements and the exception handling process is the more important thing you need to focus on. Going into this, you need to understand people are going to dispute that they have things. You're going to discover new assets that you didn't know you had. Assets are going to be just missing, and you need to agree which teams are going to be following up on those individual tasks. We recommend defining those three tasks, defining those three workflows: new assets, disputed assets, and missing assets, and creating tasks to be assigned to assignment groups for follow-up. You can Absolutely capture asset information and update your hardware table directly, your asset table directly based on the information that's been captured. We do recommend, instead of doing that, we do recommend creating tasks and assigning those to groups for follow-up. But just make sure you define that process up front and get buy-in from those assignment groups so that you're not surprising them or overwhelming them with follow-up tasks that this self-certification invariably generate.
And you know, process is my favorite term, Tom. I want a process for everything. So it definitely sounds like something we'll need to spend some time documenting with our clients. We've got this process. How do we get this out? How do we get buy-in from the rest of the organization to even bother to check the box once we send them a notification they need to self-certify?
Sure. Yeah. We recommend doing a three-phase rollout. First, let's start with just your asset management team. So the softball testers that want the solution to work, let's start with the easy users and test an initial rollout to those users and capture feedback, in terms of your form. Are you capturing too much data, too little? Is there anything confusing? And then once you've got there, then roll out to your more aggressive users, your ServiceNow developers that tend to hate anything they didn't build themselves, or different department heads that are responsible for the different field staff that are going to be impacted by it, and roll out to them second to make sure you get that kind of easy feedback and then that hard feedback. And then roll out to the user base in phases. In AIG's case, they started with a group in the US and Texas only, so that they could test their communication and test their documentation and see what kind of quality data they were getting from their end users. And then they expanded to the rest of the US. And then they're in the process of rolling out to different regions around the globe. So definitely want to make sure that we phase and start small and easy and then start to grow in phases, as opposed to trying to just roll it out to the whole enterprise in one step.
That's a great reminder. I know that when I work with my clients, sometimes they want to try to do everything all at once, not understanding that impact that it's going to have on, say, the help desk when people start asking questions or the data starts coming in and field services needs to deal with it.
Mhm.
It can be a little overwhelming for those guys. So definitely a phased rollout and maybe a location-based rollout periodically throughout the year.
Mhm.
You can't over communicate this sort of thing that you're going to be doing. And I'm going to guess from my experience, it takes a lot of internal marketing to make this
Mhm.
work.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a technology, a software guy that makes technology tools, I want to make a product that just magically solves your problem with just the push of a button. That would be cool, but you being the process nerd, you understand it just doesn't work like that. And when rolling this out, especially to end users, these are not asset management staff, these are your end users. You're going to have to get this messaging in front of them really, really early. Let them understand that this is going to be a mandatory task that users are going to be held accountable to complete, but also that it's going to be easy. Don't worry, it's just going to take a few seconds because the technology we're going to use is going to make it so. But we need to get that message to them early, months in advance if we can, and start to roll it to them and let them know, hey, the clock's ticking for this self-certification that we're going to start asking you to perform. I kind of see similar things when you're rolling out a multi-factor authentication to end users. You can't just turn that on or your help desk is just going to blow up with people being locked out of a system. Same type of thing here. We want to get that internal marketing going early, and then let them know as it's coming. Make sure they understand where the documentation is, the examples, and where to get help if they have questions. And like you said, just don't over communicate, and plan on spending some significant time communicating to your end users to ensure you're getting good adoption of the process.
That's awesome. I'm glad we agree there. So
Ah,
next is my favorite part, which is monitoring what we need to be doing. So we've rolled out the process, people are doing it. How do we make sure that we've created the right sort of reporting so that we can get value out of this?
yeah, I think that there's kind of two layers of reporting dashboards to monitor what's going on. First is just compliance. Know who you've deployed the self-certification messaging to, and who's performed their self-certification and who hasn't, and be able to follow up with those users that are lagging, that haven't submitted their data. That's level one. Then the next level is to start to capture metrics about how many exceptions you're getting. Like, what percentage of our assets are missing? How many new assets are we discovering? How many are disputed? Start to get some volume metrics around that so you can understand the quality of your data. That'd be your level two, is what we see. And then to surface that to dashboards that can kind of demonstrate, to your management teams, just how the self-certification process is going and what kind of problems you're finding, and be able to see that trending over time, and ideally seeing those missing and new and disputed asset percentages decline as we roll this out into the future.
That is always satisfying to watch that number get smaller and smaller and smaller.
That's right.
So we have to schedule this. So this isn't just a one-time thing. This is going to keep happening. So ITS typically suggests every 6 months to do a certification. What are you seeing with your customers?
6 to 12. And, I think 6 months is just fine, especially with, leading consultants like ITS recommending it. We've had our customers do 6 month. Some have done 12-month. There's not a hard and fast rule. The benefit of every 12 months is it's less work for your users and less work for the field staff, but you don't discover problems as easy. And those 12 months or those extra 6 months can bleed over the end of warranty and maintenance contract. So I don't have a hard and fast rule. 6 months to 12 months. I wouldn't go any longer than that. And in terms of scheduling, you pointed this out to me, Yvette, when we were practicing that. So I'm going to give you credit for it here, but we want to make sure that we are, when you've got this, once you get your initial rollout done and you've got your first certification done for the whole enterprise, now you're going to start doing this every 6 months. Don't do everybody at the same time. Have this roll, every month, do a new segment of your user population so that you're not overwhelming the asset management group with too many exception tasks for follow-up.
I'm picturing terror on the faces before you made that statement of field service people going, please don't do the entire organization all at once.
Right.
So we like those guys to have a fun time doing their job, not just overly stressed because of things that the asset management team asks them to help with.
Right.
So self-certification isn't the only solution here. And we know that, though. It's just a piece of the puzzle.
We've heard, when we roll this out and we talk to asset managers, some feedback I get is, hey, we can't really trust our end users. Like, that's not a real solution. And they're right. That self-certification is just a single data point to get through the asset lifecycle. It doesn't replace proper ordering, your advanced ship notice process, your centralized receiving to properly register assets. You still need to assign assets to users in order for them to self-certify that they have them. And of course, your retirement and disposal processes. This isn't something that replaces anything. It's just another data point to add to your asset lifecycle, which gives you more information to take action on and just improves the quality of your data. So it's meant to enhance what you have in place today. It's not a solution in and of itself.
That's excellent. So it sounds like once we have our actual hardware lifecycle defined, this is just that last little bit to get maybe those pieces of equipment that escaped our initial maybe inventory or are purchased outside of our normal IT buying cycle. So maybe purchased by people in departments that maybe manage their own assets, but we're still ultimately responsible for having them in the asset repository or the CMDB.
And that's right. I kind of liken it to, some companies want to just use a discovery system to manage their hardware. Well, that doesn't help you for any assets that are disconnected or things in stock rooms or things at receiving docks and things that are even discovered by discovery. If you don't have something to reconcile against, how do you know if you've got complete coverage or not? So, just like discovery isn't a solution of itself, self-certification isn't either. Again, they're all just pieces of data points that you can use to help clarify the picture and just get better and better accurate data. There's plenty of technology solutions out there that can make it easy for those end users to give you good asset data that you can take action on to really strengthen your hardware asset management process.
That's fantastic. Well, Tom, I think we're at the end of our webinar, and I want to thank you for spending the time to talk to me. I'd love to talk about asset, and I know you do too. So,
My
um,
pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having me. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you and doing more of these in the future, Yvette.
anytime.
For those that are interested in the Asset Track for ServiceNow self-certification feature, we've got a web-based demo video that you can find in the links posted here, as well as just demonstrations are available. So contact AMI if you have any questions or interest in learning more.
Thank you, Tom and Yvette, for speaking on today's webinar. Let us know how we can best serve you. And again, thank you for joining and enjoy the rest of your day.